Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Francesca, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you guys some book recommendations. I think I'm going to title this video like random fall book recs because these are all books that aren't your typical fall picks, or at least when I watch like fall recommendation videos, these aren't books that I normally see. You know, like when you watch fall book recommendations, a lot of people are going to give you like dark academia, fantasy, mystery, thriller, horror, and stuff like that. I posted 2 fall TBRs, and a lot of the books in those videos are fantasy, dark academia, mystery, thriller. Like, I get it. That is the perfect fall vibe. But these are just, I feel like, the misfits for like fall recommendations for me. It's just books that I wouldn't technically consider fall recommendations, but books that I feel like are perfect to read in the fall time, if that makes any sense. The reason I'm filming this is because I'm reading the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver, and if you know anything about that series, it is a small town romance, and I was just realizing like how much I love to read small town romance in fall. Even though it's technically not considered a fall read, I really enjoy reading small town romances in the fall. So then I started looking at my shelf and I started to like look for random books that aren't considered fall reads to film for this video. So that's what this video is. Let's get into the book recommendations. All right, so the first book that I have for you guys is The Beginning of Everything by Robin Schneider. This is a young adult coming of age novel. This is about a teenage boy named Ezra Faulkner, who is basically a parent's like son dream. Like, he's the perfect teenage boy. He's like the golden boy, and basically things in his life just start to go absolutely wrong. I will say this isn't like my typical read. I don't think I would have picked this out in the bookstore if I bought this. This was gifted to me. I actually ended up enjoying this a lot. When I was reading it, it really reminded me of like early 2010s like John Green books. Like 2014, John Green like was super popular in the book world. Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, like those were such great books. I remember reading them when I was 14 and I absolutely loved them. And reading this book just really reminded me of John Green's books. So if you like John Green in the past, or if you like him now, I think you would actually really enjoy this. Robin's writing style really does reflect his writing style to me, and yeah, I really felt like I was a freshman in high school again reading this. I would definitely recommend. Speaking of John Green in like 2014, I have this like video idea where I want to reread all of the books that I read in high school and like middle school. Like, if you were a teenager in high school during the dystopian era, oh my god, it was the best. I absolutely loved it. I miss it, and I just need the 2010 dystopian movies to come back into my life because I don't think I've watched a good movie since. Next we have Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is a young adult fantasy book. This is one of my favorite young adult fantasies that I've probably ever read. It's about 6 main characters that are in the middle of a heist. This book is just like super character driven. Like, you really get to know each character super well, which I love. I love character development. I love character driven books. It's the best. You truly get to know each character and you get to fall in love with each one of them. The found family in this book is probably what makes it one of my favorite fantasy books of all time. I just love found family and I love character development. So if you like those things too in fantasy, and the world building in this is so easy and it's so intriguing and it's so unique. Just such a great book, and the fall time is such a great time to get into it. And this is a part of a duology. I haven't read the second book. I think it's called Crooked Kingdom, but I haven't read that yet and I really want to, so hopefully I do that soon. I am in the middle of a self-proclaimed book buying ban because I just don't know how to say no when it comes to books. It's actually so bad. Like, I think it was like last week my boyfriend texted me and he was like, do you want to go get breakfast and then go to Barnes and I'll buy you books? Absolutely I do. Like, of course I do. Why are you even asking me? Pick me up. I just have way too many on my shelf that I need to get to before I feel like it's okay for me to add more. The next book that I have is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is a very popular book. I remember this having its moment a few years back, and that's why I bought it and I read it during that time. And because I am super easily influenced, so when I see a book that's trending, I'm gonna buy it. Which is why I'm on a book buying ban. This is sort of like a Greek mythology retelling, and this is just one of the most beautiful books I have ever read. This is one of my absolute favorite books of all time. I have a really hard time picking favorites. I cannot name you one book as my favorite book ever. Every time someone asks me what my favorite book is, I never know what to say, and I usually will say like The Book Thief, but I don't think that's necessarily my one favorite book of all time. The Book Thief is also an amazing book, and I probably should have included that in this video too. The Book Thief I feel like is a really good book to read in the fall time as well. So if you haven't read that, that's a young adult historical fiction. Please read The Book Thief. The Book Thief is such a beautiful book. All right, the next book that I have is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. This is one of those books where I see negative reviews, but I also see a lot of positive reviews, and I personally have a very positive outlook on this book. I absolutely love this book. This is a tearjerker. I think about Finney and Autumn religiously. It follows two childhood best friends, Finney and Autumn. The book is in Autumn's POV. Autumn is the female main character. She's the female best friend. And basically it shows her life as a current high schooler, but it shows how she reflects on her time as a child and being best friends with Finney, her next door neighbor, and her mother's best friend's son. So they were basically raised together. They spent every living hour together as kids. They were the bestest of friends. And then somewhere between middle school and high school, they kind of started joining these different cliques. And Finney became sort of this like super popular kid in school, and Autumn became one of like the misfits in school. And so they kind of went their separate ways. Like they miscommunicated. They didn't really talk about what happened, but they just weren't technically friends anymore. As Autumn is telling her story and talking about her current life, she starts reflecting on how she feels about Finney. As time passes, she realizes the feelings that she has for Finney and how she wants to rekindle their relationship, and things kind of just go on from there. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to say any more. I can't get myself to go and read the second book. There is a second book. This is a duology. The second book is called If I Had Been With Her, and it's from Finney's perspective, and I'm sorry, but I can't. I've heard like mixed reviews, and I don't want to read it and then have that one ruin this one for me. But I also don't want to read it and then just make my personal trauma even worse. The next book that I have is Daydream by Hannah Grace. This is a part of the Maple Hills series. The first two books are Icebreaker and Wildflower. This recently came out, and I read it right away. It was my most anticipated book since I first read Icebreaker, because you get introduced to the main male character, Henry, and he was my absolute favorite character in that book. Even though the book wasn't about him, he was the best character, and I desperately needed a book for him, and we finally got it. He is everything I imagined him to be. He's the perfect man. He really is. But the reason this feels like a fall book to me is because this is a hockey romance, a hockey college romance, and so hockey, college, like very fall. Hockey and college just feel like fall to me. So that's why. This is such a good one, and I know this series, like Icebreaker itself, it does have a lot of negative reviews. A lot of people don't like it. I personally enjoyed it, but if that wasn't your cup of tea, this is actually very, very different from her first two books. It's nothing like the others. If you didn't like the amount of smut in the first two, there honestly is very minimal in this. Like there is still some, but like it's not as heavy as it was in the first two. And this one was just, it was just so cute, honestly. The female main character, she's mid-sized, she's a Swiftie, she's a book lover, she's a romance book lover. She like is the leader of a book club. She's literally me. Like I feel like she's me. Yeah, and Henry is the acts of service king. It's honestly just such a cute, fun read. It's a good like palate cleanser book to me, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading this one. And so far, I feel like I haven't seen any negative reviews. Like con I would say is that like this book could have been shortened a little bit. Like I feel like it didn't need all the extra stuff that it had, like, and it still would have been the same book, but that's the only thing that I can really say about it. Other than that, I really enjoyed it, and if you haven't read it, I would definitely recommend. Next book that I have is definitely not your typical fall book. It's always recommended in the summertime because of the title itself, and now I will say you can definitely read this in the summer, but to me, this is like a late summer, early fall book, so that's why I'm going to include it, and it's also one of my favorite books of all time, and that is Beach Read by Miss Emily Henry herself, the queen herself, Emily Henry. If you haven't read an Emily Henry book, I would suggest you start with this one. It'd be one of my favorites by her. I feel like they're always interchanging. Like Emily Henry, it just gets better with time, and this is an older book, but it's still one of my favorites. It's called Beach Read. I mean, I live in Florida, so like it feels like a coastal fall book. You know, very beautiful book. It's a tearjerker like Miss Emily Henry always does. It's rivals. Both of the main characters are authors, and January, the female main character, she writes romance books. Augustus writes literary fiction. Are complete opposites, but you know, they say opposites attract. Emily Henry, all of her books are beautiful. All of her books will make you cry. Like, they just will. That is just a given when it comes to Emily Henry. She's going to make you cry at some point, and you're not going to see it coming. Maybe you will see it coming, but she's going to make you cry. Writing is just so relatable. If you haven't read Emily Henry, I'm begging you, please read it. And I would suggest starting with this one. This is one of my favorites, and I think you'll love it. The next book that I have is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is a magical realism book. This was one of my favorite books that I've read so far this year. It was definitely very unique. It's very different from everything that I've ever read before in the past. But basically this book is about this girl named Clementine who loses her aunt, and when her aunt passes away, she leaves her old apartment to Clementine. When Clementine moves into her aunt's old apartment, she sees a man standing there, and she doesn't know who this man is. This man is like the perfect man, and it's someone that she would have fallen in love with, but the problem is that this man exists 7 years in the past and she exists 7 years in the future, so she doesn't know how that's gonna work out. The best way for me to describe this is cute and unique. If you haven't read this, I highly suggest that you do. You're gonna have so much fun reading this. The next book that I have is Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is a part of the Chestnut Spring series. This technically takes place in the summer. Because it's small town romance, it feels very fallish to me. This is about Kate Eaton, and he is a single dad. He's looking for a nanny to watch over his kid for the next 2 months. He hires this nanny who happens to be like 13 years younger than him. This is a nanny single dad trope, which is honestly one of my favorite tropes. I love it. It's always so good, and Elsie Silver just has a way of doing it. And small town cowboys, like that's her thing, and I'm so obsessed. I didn't think I would be into cowboys, like I said when I was talking about Flawless. I understand why this is the fan fave. He's like this grumpy man, but he's like super soft with her and super gentle with her. And next book that I have is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. Now, if you like Elsie Silver and you really like the Chestnut Spring series, I really think that this is a book that you'll enjoy because this is a small town romance book as well. This is about a girl named Naomi who happened to be a runaway bride, and she didn't know where to go, so she went to her twin sister's town, Tina, who lives in this town called Knock 'Em Out. Her evil twin, Tina, is this horrible person, ends up leaving with Naomi's car and her cash, and she leaves behind her 11-year-old daughter. So now Naomi is stuck with no car, no cash, and an 11-year-old girl. Life imploded right in front of this barber. His name is Knox Morgan. He settles on helping her out. And basically, if you like slow burn romances, this is for you. We'll want slow burn every single time. I literally just need like this much, like I want to read this much slow burn and tension before I get into the actual romance. Like that's what I want. All right, the last and final book that I have for you guys is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is a small town romance book as well. I guess the last 3 were all small town romance, and like I said, small town romance to me is just feels right to read in the fall time. And this is one of them for me. This book is about a girl named Alexis. She's a city girl. She is a doctor. She works at Ryum Northwestern, which is like the series like hospital. This is an interconnected trilogy. All the main characters all work for the hospital Ryum Northwestern, and she is one of the doctors there. She was driving somewhere, and her car got stuck in this small town where she meets the main male character. He happens to be the one person who helps her when her car gets stuck. That's how they end up meeting, and basically she ends up spending the night there. She has like a really great time with him, but their worlds are so different. He's a small town guy, also is 10 years younger than I can't speak. He's a small town boy, and he happens to be 10 years younger than her, and she's this like city girl who works in the hospital. She has like wealthy parents, has this wealthy ex-husband who is just like ruining her life, and she's kind of going through that right now. But she starts to have feelings for Daniel, and Daniel is really trying to make it work with her, but she doesn't know how she can manage bringing him into her life. That's basically like the whole plot of the story, and honestly the book, it's such a cute book. Now with Abby Jimenez, I will say her writing gets better with each book. With the Part of Your World series, like my ranking will be Just for the Summer, Yours Truly, and then Part of Your World, which is like the exact order that they came out in. Like Part of Your World was the first one, then Yours Truly came out, and then Just for the Summer was the one that came out earlier this year. I would definitely recommend reading the entire series. Just for the Summer is one of my absolute favorite books of the entire year. It was my first 5-star read of the year. It is so beautiful, and Abby Jimenez, she's just amazing, and I've talked about how much I love her, and I will always recommend her books. And this is one of those that I feel like will just be such a great book to read in the fall time, and I think you would really enjoy it. All right guys, that's all for my random book recommendation. I really hope you guys liked this video. This was really fun. I really was just in the mood. Like, I was sitting there reading and I was like, I want to start yapping about books in front of a camera. That's what I did today. If you guys liked my video, please give it a like and please subscribe. I am trying to post weekly, or like, I'm trying to post as much as I can. I really do have a fun time filming and just talking about books, and I love hearing your guys' feedback. And yeah, so if you guys have any video recommendations for me, please comment them. If you guys want to follow me on any of my social media, I'll have everything linked down below in the description. And that's it. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. What more can a girl need than a good snack and a good book? A good cowboy romance book. I think I've reached my peak.